Good morning. Well, things are a little different this morning, can you tell? I was telling Lisa this morning that it's enough anxiety just to speak, but to work it with another person and then for that to be your wife really adds a lot of delicious discussion.
What are you saying?
That kind of thing in there. Anyway, it's been fun getting ready for this and doing this. All of our pastors are doing it today. Greg and Hope are doing the other services, and Jordan and Bryce are supposed to, although Jordan has 6 children, she might not participate up at St. Mark with doing that. But anyway, today is his needs, her needs, and the basic thought is that, you know, we have different needs, and learning how to communicate love to a person who has a different love language, so to speak, than you can be a lot of work and can be very difficult. But I'm not sure if this lady was in our congregation or not, but she was talking about her husband maybe was trying to put in some of these principles that we've been talking about, and he was coming home and he was wanting to bless her. He'd been out working out, and so he had his sweatshirt on, you know, and he was sweaty and dirty and everything, and he came in, he said, honey, you know, I just want to bless you, I'll do the wash. You don't worry about a thing. You know, I'll wash this sweatshirt. I'll wash it all. So, I mean, she's kind of, you know, surprised and a little bit nervous, you know, as he goes into the washroom, into the laundry room, and this long period of quiet. And finally, he says to her, he says, honey, what setting do I put the washing machine on? And she said, well, what does it say on the shirt? University of Florida? So it is kind of difficult sometimes to do the communication. And what we learned last week is part of our covenant commitment that we've made is that we are going to seek to bless, minister to our spouse as we travel as a companion through this life. And what makes it difficult is that we're very self-oriented. This is part of our Christian faith. Our Christian faith is the growth out of selfishness to selflessness. And learning how then to overcome our selfishness so that we can focus on another person and discover what makes that other person feel loved and do that.
So listen to this scripture, if you will. It's from Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 through 5. And it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. So this is a beautiful scripture for any marriage, but it's a beautiful scripture for any relationship. And the material that we're going to share with you today is to try to give you a few tools to put in your tool chest for relationships. Obviously, the most intimate of relationships might be the marriage one, but it's as helpful in every way. One of the things that really blessed Rule and me as a couple was this book, The 5 Love Languages. And I hope you'll get a copy and read it. This revolutionized our family life. I began to understand this was a window into my husband's soul and his into mine. And then when I read it with perspective of my children, there's one, the 5 love languages for children. I felt like I really became a better mother. And then they entered those teenage years. And yes, there's one for the teenage years too. Great, great material. But the author here, Gary Chapman, talks about the 5 love languages, which are these. Number 1, quality time, words of affirmation. Number 3, receiving gifts. Number 4, acts of service. And number 5, physical touch. Now, our children, we have one son who's married, and he and his wife are cheating because they have the same love language.
Yeah, that's not fair.
That's not fair. And it usually doesn't happen that way. In our love language grouping, my top 2 are his bottom 2, and his top 2 are my bottom 2. So, you know, we're struggling all the time to get it right and to do it well. But blessed are you if you're married to the same love language. In fact, when you're courting and dating, you probably should ask that question first, because that's a real, you know, go ahead if, you know, if they've got the same one. But you look at those love languages, my number 1 is acts of service. And when I drive in the driveway, Rule knows I'm coming, and he's out there ready to help unload my van. I just feel like he is the most romantic man in all the earth. That just rings my bell. Or if a spill occurs in the kitchen and he jumps to clean it up before I get it cleaned up, oh my goodness. I think, where did you find this guy, Lisa? He's awesome. But that's not natural for him. That's not really who he is. So he has to work to be that way. And then my second love language, and if you take the test, you'll have a primary and a secondary. My secondary love language is receiving gifts. And if you know me, every time I go out, I'm buying something for somebody. Very seldom do I buy anything for myself because I love giving to other people, and that's a sure sign that something might be your gift. That's what you tend to do for others. Well, one day, this stands out in my memory as one of the sweetest gifts I got. He was coming home from the church, and he wheeled into the neighborhood and saw growing down there in the ditch some blooming flowers. He stopped his car and picked those, and when he walked in the door, he gave them to me. And I thought, oh, this man is so romantic, and I feel so loved. I'm not going to tell them. Yeah. And they were weeds. He didn't know it, and I didn't tell him, and I didn't care. Now, not every person was going to feel loved when they're handed a bouquet of weeds, but I did. Because he saw those, he thought about me, he stopped, he took time. And it blessed me so much because those are my love languages. Something happened just yesterday that it points out our love languages too. I got the phone call that every mother hates to get. And when I picked up my cell phone, the woman's voice on the other side said, "Your son is going to be okay. We're at the Cocoa Beach emergency room. He's broken his wrist." Your heart just sinks. And so I'm talking to her, and we're, working it out, and I hang up the phone, and then we've got to prepare our sermon, and, we're working, and all this is flying through my mind. It's his right hand. He has a stick shift. He's in the middle of school. Tests are coming up next week. He can't type. He can't write. He's going to be on painkillers. All this is flowing through my head. Who's going? I know who's going. It's going to be me. It's always Mom, and I'm feeling, I don't do well in medical emergencies, y'all. I just don't, but it always ends up on my plate, and practicing this, I don't know, by the end of the afternoon, my love tank was pretty much drained. And I just said to Rule, could you give me a hug? Maybe that would help me fill my love tank up. And he did give me the most wonderful hug, and it meant absolutely nothing to me. First of all, that's not my love language. And secondly, I was just so consumed with how we're going to work this out. Am I going to have to go to Orlando right after the sermon on Sunday? What are we going to do? And we don't know any doctors down there, and find an orthopedic specialist. And I hope it wasn't the nightmare it was a year and a half ago when he broke the same hand. And, all this is swirling through my mind. And so we went in. I thought, okay, I'm going to get on my computer. I'm going to start working. I'm going to start locating the orthopedic specialist. God, give me direction as to who's down there to be the best doctor for our son. And I said to Rule, he said to me, is there anything I can do to help you? And I said, yes. If you'll call Pastor so-and-so, your friend who lives in Orlando, and ask him who a good specialist is. And if you'll call our good buddies, the Precks, and ask them if they know of anyone. And sure enough, she had broken her wrist recently, and so they knew all about, But when he jumped in to make some phone calls and to help me in the crisis we were in, I felt loved. And my love tank just started filling up. So you see how valuable love languages can be?
Yeah. And if you don't know yours, that's a real important thing to learn, because you can begin to see it just affects the interactions of how a person feels love. There's a web address we have, 5lovelanguages.com, that you can go to, and if they put that up there, you'll be able to copy that down, and you can do the little thing in 5 minutes. I think Lisa did it, and you can find out what your love language is and begin experiencing experience with that particular thing. My love language, primary one, is quality time, with the emphasis on quality. I want Lisa's full attention when I have her, and I want her very...
Does this count?
Often.
I'm giving you my full attention.
Don't interrupt me when I'm talking. That's part of the quality time.
Okay. Got it.
But like when she'll call me at the end of the day, and maybe she's working up at St. Mark's, she said, would you meet me at Turkey Creek and let's walk, before we go home. And, that really fills mine up because we get over there and I've got her to myself and we can talk, we can debrief the day and talk about that. So before we ever get home, I've already gotten lots of good quality time with her. I enjoy going out to eat, not because we just particularly go out to eat, but I've got her to myself again, and I get that quality time where I can talk to her and she listens well to me and all those kinds of things. I can say all I want to do. So that's very, very meaningful to me. Then the second part, my secondary, is physical touch. And it's not, hasn't always been necessarily in the hugging form. I really hadn't been a big hugger. I've gotten more into hugging later in life, but it's almost like any time, if you can touch me on the side or sit next to me. In fact, when we fixed up our little media room after our children left, we got this nice little media room, but we got a love seat, and I can sit right next to her. And she can do whatever she wants to do, and I can watch football. And with the headphones.
Please, with the headphones. Yeah.
It's funny, but we're next to each other, and that just communicates lots to me. So that's a very important thing. So I really encourage you on the love language. There's another metaphor that we talk about is a love tank. And as soon as I say tank, I don't know about you guys, but I begin to start thinking about motors and vehicles and cars and motorcycles and filling up the gas tank. And because you can have the most expensive car that you want in your garage, but if you don't have any gas in the tank, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything. So you've got to have gas in it, and the same thing is relationships. The tank has to have stuff in it. It's got to have gas in it. I don't know if girls are like this, but I imagine probably percentage-wise, I bet more guys have run out of gas on the highway. Maybe we tend to push things a little more or just think it's going to run anyway, just because we will it to. But anyway, when you run out of gas on the highway, first of all, it's just embarrassing. That you didn't take care of matters before you did. It's embarrassing. But then also it's a big pain because you got to go, call somebody or whatever you got to do to get the thing up and running again. Well, relationships do the same kind of thing. And when you run out of gas, it's not like it just stops like that. Have you ever noticed you're going along and maybe first it goes out is the power steering. You say, hey, what's wrong with the steering wheel? It's not working right because you can't hear the engine very well. And then you start pressing the gas and you're not going. You're slowly slowing down. So, it just kind of, and then you start saying, Lord, please help it coast to a gas station or something like that. But so after a while, it comes to a stop. So it's the same way in our relationships. It's not like it, if you don't keep the tank full, it just comes to stop automatically. But after a while, it begins to slow down. And I think a very important question is keeping that thing. It's a major priority for all of us is filling up our love tank and making sure it's staying full.
So when you're dating someone or you're courting, it's just so easy to fill their love tank up. You're speaking all 5 of those love languages. You're spending quality time together. You're lots of tender touches and kisses and, gifts, little gifts you're giving each other all the time, words of affirmation, and you're just filling each other.
Conversations.
I remember our first date. We stayed up till 2 a.m. talking.
Wow, that's the last time that happened, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. You read my mind. Anyway, your love tank gets nice and full, and then the reality of life hits, and you get married. And real life starts. And then the stuff of life happens. You have a crisis in your life like we had yesterday. And that starts draining your love tank. Maybe you're having financial problems in your life. Someone loses their job, and that starts draining your love tank. You're fighting with your husband because you're sick or you're stressed out, or the baby is crying all night long. And just things like that's what happens in life on a daily basis, in the real world, in the real adult life. So if we're not actively filling that love tank up and refilling it all the time, it gets depleted, and we're empty, and we're fighting, and we're struggling, and we're grouchy, and we don't really even know if we like each other anymore. So you see how important that concept is of keeping that love tank full.
Yeah, so the question is, how do we keep it full? And that a third metaphor, I think, that has helped us in this is a love bank. So we're talking about love languages as a metaphor, and then we're talking about a love tank, and now a love bank. And guys, this ought to be easy to get because it's banking, and you make withdrawals and you make deposits. And deposits, as you might guess, are the positive things that you do. You know, that's when you're helping around the house without being asked. You're doing those kind, tender things. You're listening. You're talking. Those are all deposits that we make. Things that we do when we bless our mate. Things that we do to encourage and do those. Those are deposits. That's filling up the love bank. And as Lisa mentioned, you know, when you first get married, you know, it's just full. The bank's just full because you've made so many deposits and everything with all the wonderful things you've done, romantic things you've done, and then the honeymoon and all of that. And then the regular routine and the grind of just living life begins to occur. And the kids come along and all of these various things. And what happens is we begin to make withdrawals. And if we're not careful, we might make more withdrawals than we make deposits. In fact, that's very easy for that to happen. And we don't get if you're not paying much attention, when the little bank statement comes in, that you might be close to overdrawn or overdrawn. An interesting thing happens every Friday for me. I get a text from Bank of America. We just have this wonderful love relationship. They text me my checking account balance. And I think, you know, it comes at different times. I never know exactly what time, but I get it and just look at the balance. And I thought, you know, if Lisa would text me every Friday how I'm doing.
I can do that.
Yeah, just tell me, you know, where's the cup? How's my love bank account doing? You know, do I have plenty in there or whatever? You know, that would be a little easier to get my balance. But in the marriage relationship, we often allow the other person to go into overdraft, to overdrawn. And particularly in the marriage relationship, what happens is we'll let that thing go into overdrawn for a week, month, sometimes a year. In fact, it's incredible to me, in the marriage relationship, we'll go into overdrawn sometimes for years. But what'll happen eventually? If you keep writing checks in the bank and you're making more withdrawals than deposits and you're overdrawn, after a while they'll send you a notice that says the account is closed. And in relational terms, that would be the divorce papers. I mean, you get to a point where you just say, you know, I'm empty. I mean, there is nothing left. It's all drained out and there's nothing there. Now, what really complicates things is that a lot of times you're trying to make a deposit into your spouse's love bank, but it doesn't come across as a deposit. That's this whole love language thing. You know, how can I make a deposit that constitutes a real deposit in a person's life? We found it's on YouTube if you can go and find it, a JCPenney commercial. It was from the jewelry department, and this guy was bringing a nice gift to his wife. It was their anniversary. It's a huge gift. He brings it in and sets it down. You can tell he is so proud. I mean, his smile. And she opens it up, and it's a vacuum cleaner. And she just kind of looked at him and says, "You gave me a vacuum cleaner for our anniversary?" She said, "Yes, honey, and it'll be the best vacuum cleaner that you'll ever own in your lifetime." He was so proud. She was sitting there, you know, and he said, "It's got dual bags." And she's just incredible. In fact, she takes him out of the house, takes him into the backyard, out into the lower 40, and there's this little doghouse. And she says, "In there." And so he goes into the doghouse, and he goes down this huge chute, and he ends up down, looks like an underground tunnel or something, and there's all these other guys, and he says, "Where am I?" He says, "You're in the doghouse." He said, "What'd you do?" He said, "I didn't do anything." He said, "I gave her a gift." He said, "What'd you give her?" "Well, I gave her a vacuum cleaner." And they all laughed. He gave her a vacuum cleaner for her anniversary. He said it had dual bags. He said, I don't understand. He said, oh, and then they started calling him dual bags. Oh, dual bag doesn't even know why he's down here. So anyway, you can think you're making a positive, but if you aren't, you're making a withdrawal. So it's very important. So when we sent the survey out to you, we asked that question, question number 21.
Which was, what are the things your spouse does that makes you feel closest to him or her? And so we had 400 people in our church, over 400, who filled out this survey. And we're going to share with you the results of that now. It's going to come at you real fast, but then I'm going to draw some conclusions. I'm going to share with you what the women said about their husbands, looking at different age groups. The 20s and 30s crowd, the women said, these are the 5 things that make me feel loved, make me feel cared for by my husband. Number 5, shares thoughts and feelings, provides a sense of security. Number 4, expresses admiration. He compliments me. Number 3, he has fun with me. Number 2, he cares for our children. And number 1, he demonstrates affection. He listens to me. So those are the top 5 things. So men, if your wife is in her 20s and 30s right now, you need to record these things. Write them down. These are the things that are going to mean something to your wife when you do them. So the women who were in their 40s and 50s said these. 5thly, expresses admiration and compliments me. 4thly, has fun. 3rdly, shares thoughts and feelings. Number 2, listens to me. Number 1, demonstrates affection. Okay, you see some commonality, some overlapping. The only thing we really lose is cares for children. They get older and don't require so much care. So that kind of drops down on the list. And then in the ages 60 to 70, the things that these women care about, he gives me a tender touch. 4, he shares his thoughts and feelings. 3, he provides a sense of security for me. 2, he expresses admiration and compliments me. And number 1, demonstrates affection. So let me draw some things together. All of these categories have the number 1 thing in common: demonstrates affection. So men, if you only can make 1 deposit today to your wife, make it a big one. Demonstrate affection to her. That's what's going to ring her bell. Now, what means affection to your wife? You got to find out what the love language is that she speaks, so that you can do that for her. She will experience your affection and feel very loved. Another commonality in all of these age groups was this: expresses admiration, compliments me. I mean, guys, how easy is that? Compliment her. If she comes out wearing a new outfit, say, that looks beautiful. You look beautiful in that. If she wears an outfit she's had for 30 years, say, I can't believe you can still fit into that, honey. That's awesome.
That would be something.
You look beautiful. If she changes her hair color, if she changes anything, if she cooks a meal, say, honey, you didn't burn the beans, thank you. I mean, you can think of something positive to say. And I think this applies to every man in this room. With your wife, your sweetheart, your sister, your coworker, every day say 1 word that's complimentary. And you will be blessing them. You will be filling those love tanks up. I mean, that's just so easy. And then the other thing, which isn't so easy, is sharing thoughts and feelings. That component was in every age group from age 19 to age 80. Share your thoughts and feelings. I say this a lot to Rule, because he's a thinker. He's always thinking, and if he's silent for a long period of time, I know something is going on in there. And I say to him, what are you thinking, honey? And his answer is usually, nothing. I don't think that's right. So
that's a whole category for guys, by the way. You just need to know that. It's a real category.
This is my part now.
Nothing.
So, that makes me feel like, well, he is thinking something, he didn't want to share it with me. So here's your tack. If you're thinking about something and your wife asks you what it is, if you can't say that, I'm just thinking about how beautiful you are, sweetheart. See, now you've done 2 things. You've shared your thoughts and you've complimented her. But sharing of your thoughts and sharing of your feelings is something women crave from their husbands. So, be transparent. Be vulnerable. Tell them when you're hurting. Tell them when you have needs. Be a real man. Tell them how you're really feeling and doing in life. And those things will draw your wife closer to you.
Okay, I got to quickly run through what guys said made them feel loved. And in the 20s and 30s group, the fifth most given thing was when she gives a tender touch. Fourth was expresses admiration, compliments me, shares thoughts and feelings to me. The third thing was when she cares for our children. That makes guys feel loved. Number two was sexual intimacy and has fun with me when we do those two things. Number one was demonstrates affection and listens to me. Then the 40s and 50s. Number five was when she cares for our children. That was a little bit lower down on the list. Number four was sexual intimacy, occurring in 4 decades of people, which was interesting to note did not occur as in the ladies, and I think there's some differences there that have to be negotiated in the marriage relationship, obviously. Number three was shares thoughts and feelings and listens to me. Number two was has fun with me. Number one, demonstrates affection. And then 60s and 70s, a little bit different here. You know, they're in the empty nest stage. Usually number five was when she provides a sense of security for me, when she worships or prays with me. Number three is when she shares thoughts and feelings with me and has fun with me and expresses admiration. Number two is listens to me. Number one is demonstrates affection. Now, the ones that I saw some commonalities was this whole expressing admiration. Guys want their wives to take pride, to respect, and to look up to and express that admiration to them. I think this starts in kindergarten, really. You know, when a little boy can first say, "Watch this," he's trying to impress some little girl somewhere. And this whole knight in shining armor coming to the damsel in distress is a very real thing for a man. And sometimes this is said in criticism by you ladies when you talk about the fragile male ego. But I think God's made us in such a way that we need the admiration of a woman, and we need the compliments and the respect that comes from a woman. I think He's created us that way, and I think that's a good thing. It says, listens to me. That was interesting. Just the same group of people, I know, where the wives are complaining that we don't talk and wants to hear our thoughts and feelings. However, what I would like to say is I think men want to talk. I just think what they need is they need time and space and topics that they want to talk about. We had a guy in a church one time that he just never said anything. I think Lisa took it on her to try to get him to talk one Wednesday night. And I had kind of given her some information. I said, you know, this guy really likes muzzle-loading guns. This was in another church. And so she sat down across the table from him and said, "Sam, Rule told me that you like muzzle-loading guns." And I don't think you got another word in that night from Sam as he began to tell her all about muzzle-loading guns. So men do like to talk. It's just giving some time and space and finding things that they want to talk about. And then the whole thing of sexual intimacy that was mentioned in 4 decades of men there is one of the most powerful needs of men, if not the most powerful that God has made us in that way. It was not listed in the top 5 in the 60s and 70s, but I'm sure that there would be some 70 and 80-year-old men that would appreciate me being able to say to all of you that it is still on the list. It may not be in the top 5, but it's on the list. I can assure you of that. Well, this really brings us to a point to where we say, okay, how are we going to negotiate these differences? We find out the things that women want to express His love to them. We find out the things that men need, his needs and her needs. They're different, but we've got to learn to do the things, to go, as the Scripture says, to do nothing out of selfish ambition. Rather, we value others above ourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each to the interest of the others. Now, you tell me what that would do in a relationship, in any relationship, but particularly the marriage relationship, if everything I do is looking after Lisa's interest and what she does is looking after my interests. That's just learning to be good Christians, isn't it? I mean, that's for all of us. Now, we would not be truthful with you if we stood here and said that we've just done nothing but make deposits in each other's life all the time, and that we've never made withdrawals, or we haven't been overdrawn.
We've probably been empty several times.
Like we've been empty a few times, and I know that there are times in which my job has gotten overwhelming, and there were long periods of
times when the children overwhelmed our family, their needs. Yeah.
I'm waiting for you to confess. I've just confessed.
Well, I said there were times when the needs of our family were so overwhelming to me that he just totally fell off the radar screen. Mamas, it's, when our babies are hurting or struggling, it's so easy to give them our full attention. And then you look up and you say, oh yeah, I got a husband, where's he? So that's challenging too.
So even, as trying to be committed Christians, I think we would also say we've gone longer than we should have in not dealing with issues. Sometimes we've needed outside help and somebody who could be objective to help us work through the times we were stuck. But each time we came back to a place like this that says, I need to start doing the things that speak to the other, that communicate love to the other regardless of how I feel. And it's been those times that we've been able to rediscover the love that we have. Let's pray. Thank you for listening to our message today. I hope that you've been inspired to act upon what you've just heard and become a doer of the Word. Feel free to contact us through the information on the screen or through our website. Better yet, if you're ever in the Niceville, Florida area, feel free to stop by and visit us at the Niceville United Methodist Church.